It's time now for Media in Check. Welcome back to Weekly Review. I'm your host, Rob Awahan, and today we have Angela Jung joining us here in the studio to fill us in about the latest updates and compelling news related to the media. How are you doing today, Angela?
I'm doing fine. I think this week was a lot better than last week for me personally. What about you?
Yeah. Mine was, let's see. I had some fun. I did some fun things during the long weekend.
Oh, nice.
So that was really good. Yeah.
Yes.
And, it's so hot. We went swimming and that's just the perfect thing to do.
Yes.
When it is this
nice
hot.
season, yes.
Mm-hmm. So what is our topic for today, Angela?
Yeah, so today I want to start with a question. So do you read a newspaper in a paper form these days or online like many other people like myself?
That's a really interesting question. And it started me thinking how, like, when you get a paper newspaper, you sit and you, like, go through the whole thing.
Right.
Right? But when I follow, like, my favorite hashtags or news trends, I only follow the topics that I think to look up.
Right.
Which is a really big difference, actually.
It is. So, I mean, the reason I asked this question is because I want to ask, do you ever feel like you're inevitably being picky on what you read online?
Yeah, and that's just the thing, right? And the other thing that gets me about online news is sometimes it's not even me being picky, but sometimes it might be the news website kind of looking at which sites I've visited before and being picky for me.
Right. They really mention a couple of news topics, very repetitively. And that's kind of a topic I want to talk about today. So the topic I want to discuss today is a term called news avoidance phenomenon from the Digital News Report 2022, which was recently published on the website of the Reuters Journalism Institute. So this quote-unquote news avoidance, which is considered a much more active expression of opinion than just simply not watching the news, was found to be a common trend among all ages in 46 countries surveyed.
Okay, now, so news avoidance it's not just like I don't read the newspaper, but it's like, oh, don't talk about that around me.
Exactly, on certain topics.
Oh, I don't want to hear that name. Oh, I don't want to know about that. Whether that's Kardashians or Trump,
yes.
or or the hot issue of the day. So actually saying, no, I don't want to hear about that.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, on the one hand, I understand where that's coming from sometimes because the media it's really like a fire hose now, it's coming at us all the time. And that means that we see the same news again and again. And sometimes some of the sources are not always reliable, but, that update or the correction doesn't always travel as fast as the false report.
Exactly.
So where does Korea stand in this situation of news avoidance?
Yeah, so the survey result shows 67% of Korean news users have selectively avoided news. The main reason for avoiding news is that it's unreliable.
Okay.
So the Korea's news credibility in 2022 was 30%, ranking 40th out of 46 surveyed countries, so very low. And this is a 2% decrease compared to last year's survey and was found to be lower than the average of 42% in the surveyed countries.
And 42% is not hot stuff either, really,
I know.
right? Okay, and however, that number, 30%, that's a little shocking to me. So what do experts say about this phenomenon here in Korea?
So Jin-Hoo Choi, a senior research fellow at Korea Press Foundation, said in the COVID-19 pandemic last year, news credibility actually increased overall due to the increased reliance on the news. Also, there was an increase in news consumption due to South Korea's presidential election.
Yeah.
In the meantime, 67% of domestic users answered that they had selectively avoided news, and this is a 15% increase compared to the 2017 survey, which was 52%.
Okay. Now, what about if we look at this kind of by generation? Was there a difference between different generations in their rate of avoiding news?
Yes, certainly. So in particular, the younger generations, such as 20s and 30s, was found to avoid news more often. Proportion of respondents who said they avoid the news was 63% in their 20s, 62% in 30s, 70% in their 40s, 67% in their 50s, and 73% in their 60s. But in terms of the percentage of those who answered very often, those in their 20s accounted for the highest at 9%.
Okay, I mean, these numbers are pretty dire for every generation, really. 73% for people in their 60s. Wow. I still need to get my head around that one. Now, the number one reason you said was that there were trust issues related to the quality or maybe the accuracy of the news.
Right.
What about in other countries?
Yes, so of those who said they have avoided news, 42% said they do not trust the news or the news is biased, which is significantly higher than the global average of 29%. So countries similar to Korea, which was 42%, are Turkey by 42%, Greece by 40%, and the United States by 39%, of all which have low news credibility.
Now, if people don't believe the news that they hear, I mean, they have less reason to check the news at all.
That's right.
But at the same time, there's fatigue. And I've seen this in a bunch of my friends online who, like, there are certain issues and certain political figures, and following the news when those people or those issues are around is just exhausting. So information overload or fatigue can happen where suddenly it seems like every news article is about this one specific topic.
Yeah, so one thing to note here is that the news avoidance doesn't happen for all news. It's not about avoiding the news itself as a whole, but it's about rejecting news on specific topics that you're not interested in.
Okay. And honestly, like, I'm okay with avoiding news. For example, when the new Star Wars movie came out, I silenced a bunch of hashtags on my SNS to make sure that I wouldn't have the plot spoiled.
That's a smart idea.
You know, the surprises ruined before I had a chance to see the movie. But it's a whole other thing if, for example, our world is in, some sort of a crisis and somebody decides to just not pay attention. So which topics did people tend to avoid?
Yeah, so selective evasion was prominent in politics and news related to COVID-19. However, these two themes have been the most important agendas in the media so far. The report also noted that news avoidance occurs in issues such as political crisis, international conflicts, pandemics, and climate disasters, which have traditionally been considered important agendas by journalists. So this is a point that inevitably deepens concerns within the legacy media regarding the news value standards.
Yeah. Now, I mean, on the one hand, some of these issues are really important. And if somebody is just tuning out because, I'm tired of hearing about climate, well, I mean, we want to have a planet to live on, right?
That's right.
So part of me wonders if it's time to rethink the idea of why we watch the news. I mean, it's not for my entertainment.
Right.
It's so that I can be a better citizen. But then also, it is true, though, that, climate change is a very slow motion disaster. So the news report on Tuesday and the news report on Wednesday might not sound that different, which makes it hard to keep it fresh when you put it on the news.
Yes, and I think it's also about the quality or the length of the article. So I'll talk more about that. So especially in Korea, where large portals account for more than 70% of digital news use routes, the shared responsibility of improving the quality of news service is critical. So for example, in a study comparing the quality of articles that users read a lot and articles that people read long, researchers found that the longer reading strategy strategy, that is producing high quality articles, was better than reading a lot.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand this. So you said high page views, that means they get lots of clicks. And then you said kind of reading time.
Right.
Right? So that means not that they get lots of clicks, but people who do click it, like read it for a longer, maybe 3 minutes or 10 minutes instead of click, read the first 3 sentences, close it.
Yes, and I totally agree with that because sometimes when I click an article, it's just like a couple of lines and that's it with like a photo. And I'm like, this is not an article. I want to read the story behind it. And that's what the journalism has to be about, right? So it has come to the conclusion that it should be a long-term business strategy for the media, I think.
And I mean, this is hard because younger users are used to the digital kind of the digital revolution, where since somewhere around 2000, it became easier to get your news online, and also we got used to not paying for news during somewhere in the last 20 years as well. But I mean, sometimes the phrase comes to mind that you get what you pay for.
Yes, that's right. I mean, I'm sure like the MZ generations, if they come across some really good quality news articles, they might be willing to pay for some of the good articles. I personally pay for a certain magazine just to be updated on the certain industry, and I think it's worth my money. So the media should never forget the value of implementing quality journalism is what I wanted to talk about today. And even in the digital age, the essence of journalism, I mean, should not really change, right?
Yeah. And I mean, good quality journalism does cost money. And that's hard because, advertising puts the incentive on clicks, which means clickbait gets the benefit. But I read this really great article a little while ago called The Truth is Paywalled, I think, but the lies are free. And just saying that, if all the quality journalism is behind a paywall, but the bad journalism is free because they want the advertising clicks, that's a different type of problem.
Yes.
We've got to figure this one out. And those longer articles are great. So how can we get more of them? And that's a question that doesn't quite have an answer yet. But thank you so much, Angela, for bringing it to our attention.
My pleasure.
And that's everything for Media in Czech.